All right. So, yeah, thanks for joining again. So, this will be the mindfulness session number 7. And there was a question that I wanted to, a student has asked, and I thought I'd go through that one because it's been for a while that I kind of promised I was going to talk about it. So, I made some notes just to go through that one now. Um, the word was separation. Yeah. So, separation, and I was talking about yin and yang. So, we were talking about the idea of to understand yin and yang, you have to separate them. You need to know what yin is, what yang is, and then you put them together. And of course, for a beginner, if you listen to that, it doesn't mean anything. You don't know what yin is or what yang is. How do you separate them? How you put them together. So it's just what I meant was it's about just learning the extremes and to pay attention to the extremes. So when you breathe in, you notice what breathing in is and stay with it, and then you compare with how it feels like when you're breathing out. If you expanding or contracting energy, to try to be aware of what that means to you in your body. Or just tense it up to know what this is, tension, and then to know what total relaxation of the muscle means. So you need to play with those two opposites. In archery, it's so important to be able to shoot an arrow on purpose instead of hitting the bullseye to go a little bit left or a little bit right. And so to practice like that. So you shoot it right in the middle, you shoot him in the middle, but then you just, you can change the side or you can just turn the hand a little bit left and right. And if you turn this way, the arrow is going to go this way. If I turn my wrist this way, it's going to go that way. So you're practicing those things. So then when it comes to competition and there's a lot of wind blowing and the wind is coming this way, instinctively you start to tilt the bow a little bit that way. You don't realize you're doing it, but during your training, you need to practice to know what are the opposites. And that becomes the game. You're just doing it all the time. So with the Tai Chi, you're doing it always with push and pull. Balance on the right leg. When you're doing the clouds, hand, and just notice when you're walking sideways, how you're transferring your weight from the left leg to the right leg. So you're paying attention to all those little things rather than just doing the movement quickly. So really, it's an internal game. So this is what I meant. So when it comes to the mind, it's the same. To really be aware of what it means if you're just going to just talk and you're going to listen. What is the opposite? So some exercises, that we used to do is you can try yourself, set the alarm and just talk for 5 minutes non-stop. So you can't pause. You just have to talk and just like now, I'm going to talk to you. I don't know what to say. For 5 minutes, it's only 5 seconds. So you just keep on talking any kind of rubbish. Just talk. And then after 5 minutes, you notice, oh, that was intense. That's what we do all the time. Or we think all the time. So your thinking is always one thought, then another thought, and another thought. So you do an exaggeration of thinking and talking. And then you practice 5 minutes of just watching and listening and silence. So that's a way of achieving balance. You just notice those two extreme forces in you, yeah? So that's what I meant by separation. And again, they're both important because it's like the two sides of a coin. There's another, so that is one way of looking at what I meant about separation. There's another one on separation that I will never mention and you were present. It was about I don't know if you can see that. I've got a circle and there's three words in there: separation, initiation, and return. But unfortunately, I can't see you, so I have to remove it while I talk. So, but at the moment, there should be a circle in front of you, yeah? So I'll take it away. So, okay. Did you see that? Did you see this? Okay, good. So that circle of separation, initiation, and return, it's another way of looking at separation. That is really the meaning of the circle is your life's journey. Or when I talked about Joseph Campbell in his book, the Hero's Journey. So that is what we go through all the time. We get lost out of our comfort zone, where we're going through some problem, and then the initiation, which is the transformation for you to get through that issue, and then return back to some kind of normality or balance. And then it happens the next day, and then it happens again. So that is in mythology is no matter if we like it or not, it's everywhere. It's this idea that we have to grow in that sense. So you have this where you separated yourself from existence. Maybe you've gone into your head too much or into your story. You lost a bit of balance, and then you have to go through this initiation. And then the initiation, you come back again. It doesn't mean you're achieving something and you're advancing. So don't look at it that way, because it's not about results. An initiation is just an initiation. So, for example, I could have broken my back and not walk again. That's an initiation. There's no good or bad. The initiations are beautiful. Don't analyze them and pick what kind of initiation you want. So the important thing is to don't look at it in terms of results and achievement. So what's going on in your life? Is the soul maybe evolving with your physical body? And when you die, it's another initiation. Yeah. I think I mentioned to you once there was a line from Woody Allen. I don't know if you know Woody Allen, so an actor. He used to make some movies. And he said that dying must be a good thing. Everybody's doing it. So it's kind of, we don't think about it, but it's a natural process. So this journey is not a perfect journey. It's just a journey. You can't put maybe those two words together, perfect journey. There is no perfect journey. It's just a journey that you go through. It's your journey, so already it's perfect because it's yours. And so for me now, as you know, it's just selling the house and buying another one. Or at the moment, nothing's happening, so I'm like halfway in between that. So that's my journey at the moment, and it's you go through an initiation. What you don't want to do, I guess, is to look at your situation. For example, if you separate from your partner or something extreme, and then your friends come around, and then everybody's talking about, oh, that's a terrible thing, and blaming the other person, and you're analyzing the situation and looking if it's good or bad, if it's going to improve or not. So this doesn't matter. It's still an initiation. You're going through it. So once we can see things like that, we don't take things so seriously anymore. Because the mind is different. The mind is all about, expectations and desires and goals. So that's the other way that we were talking, that I wanted to mention about the separation. So we call it, in that sense, separation. Now, some of the notes are made about looking at the word separation from the first one about the yin and yang and separating things, I thought would be a good opportunity to again give you another chance to look at what it means when you are not in your head, or when your mind will drop, maybe for good, and you don't identify anymore, and you have some kind of self-realization. Different words, enlightenment. So these words are too big. They're actually very simple. So one way to explain this is we're going to use the word innocence. So there is an original innocence of the child. As you know, the child doesn't think at first. So all his learning is done without thinking. So that we know is a fact because they don't speak the language. So you consider what I mean by thinking is language. So they're thinking, but yes, it's a different way of thinking. So we call it awareness. So the child is in awareness. The child is witnessing, observing. And that's how the child learns, yeah. So that's what we call it, the original innocence. So it's all done through awareness. But then something happens. We trade. We put that aside, that awareness, and now we use the power of the mind, going through school. So we learn about, it's all about getting an education, yeah? So education is very, very important. I would say no. So you can imagine if I go to Glendowie College and the teachers are there, and I'm in front of the teachers and students, I say to them, it's not all about education. It's about something else. It's not going to work. So, but with you, I guess you've heard me before. So education is not really important. Training is probably another word. We want to use more training than education. And we need to train. So martial arts is a training. So there's a difference between education and training. If you think about the teenagers that I see at school, if you ask them, do you want sex education or sex training? It's quite different. The parents will say it's sex education, but the kids will think, I want sex training, because training has to do with you actually experiment and you have feedback and you know how you're doing. So it's very important. The training is important. So in martial arts, we have to learn about how to train your mind. It's not just about reading books and learning about the mind and becoming educated in that sense. So what we're talking about is a training. You have to practice to now go back, and not to the original innocence. You can't, because that was when you were a child. But now going back to this other innocence, which is like another level where you have to abandon a certain way of thinking. But at the moment, it's all mixed up. We don't know anymore what's thinking, what's not thinking. So this is the process of being able to do it differently again, where you can go back to where you're not burdened by concepts anymore, and you're not using your programming, your conditioning. So we could say it's an openness of perception without naming things. So you're looking at any image, as we said before, behind me, and you're able to just look, but there's no labeling, and there's no naming of what you see. So learning to do that again. So it's kind of regaining that state, we can call it, of an innocent perception, which is very clear. Yeah. You can always go back to thinking, that's fine. But to be able to do that again now. And you want to do it now and go into this new state of innocence again, of perception, because you do feel like the other one is not working. If you think you had enough of thinking and worrying and analyzing things and you're not getting anywhere, you don't feel really happy and satisfied with yourself, and you feel like you haven't reached a truth or the understanding of who you are, then if all that is not important, it's fine. Then you can carry on analyzing and judging things. But if you think you had enough, then this is where now you join things like mindfulness, meditation, or Tai Chi is to look at, okay, what's next really. It can't be just get up and turn this on and start to think your way through everything. So being able to be still, like you can do now, where I don't impose my words onto reality, and I just try to see reality the way it is. Because you have this kind of mask, as we said, like an ego or mask or a veil of quiet words for the language. In my case, first, I can be Italian. So my reality is translated into Italian, and language carries a conditioning as well. It's kind of embedded in the language. In Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, English, everything is all very different, I noticed. So your reality is very different depending on the language as well, or your religious beliefs or your mind structures. So that's all the way you look at reality. So there's an interpretation of reality, which is good, is useful. We use the mind, we're interpreting reality. At first, is good. And we use the language to communicate with others, which is important. And then we can communicate, we can maybe learn and have this education and training. But language is only to communicate with others, not to communicate with yourself. So it's very simple. As long as you don't communicate with yourself, it's fine. You can communicate with language with others. So it's very simple, really. It comes down to that. So you're not using, so Zen is just not thinking. You're not communicating with yourself. So you become the child again, where you can experience things the way they are. It isn't a story that comes with it. But because you've been so conditioned to think, you now don't see that, you don't really see what you're doing, that actually you forgot who you were originally. And now you became this mask. Yeah. So this persona or this personality. Nothing wrong with it again, but you just need to be aware that that's what it is. You've created now another you. Just like using Windows 10 on a computer, or Windows 5, or whatever you're doing. You're trying to achieve certain things, but the programming is different. So the languages are different. Now, if you're a negative thinker, that means that you have maybe negative programming, yeah? So everything is negative and you're complaining all the time. Of course, it's a good idea to rearrange the furniture, as to say, and you're rearranging your thinking. So that would be the furniture. So it's like saying getting rid of a really hard chair in your house. So yeah, it's good. Get something more comfortable. So you can make it more comfortable in your head and get rid of any kind of negativity that you may have and start to have some positive thinking. But the positive thinking will only take you up to a point because it's also, we may call it form. Yeah? It's a form, it's mental forms. Mental forms, mental thoughts. So you limit it to or negative thoughts, or negative forms, or objects. And then you have the positive thoughts, and it's still form. So you're still living in this dimensional form. It just looks nicer, but what we're pointing here is to a deeper you, which is formless. So it's a formless consciousness, if you want to call it that. But you're really just able to observe and look. There's no labeling of things. So for example, you can imagine you're just moving furniture in your house and you drop something on your foot. So you're going to experience pain, but that pain will bring some kind of commentary, yeah? So you may swear in the language of your choice, followed by some kind of story, and it just goes on. Or you may find one day it just happens to you that you may actually drop something and hurt yourself, and there will be just a scream, which is just energy, and it's not followed by anything else, which is a huge transformation. It's really quite a good experience. You can break something and there's no commentary. So that already probably has happened to you already, through Tai Chi, because you've been already learning to be present, and then you are now able to notice traffic, and there isn't maybe much going on up in your head. But if you're living the other way, where it's just labels and thinking processes all the time, imagine thinking 24 hours. What would that be like? Well, you don't have to imagine. Everybody's doing it almost. So you kind of know the experience of, thinking about everything as it happens. You can imagine a psychologist then as well. Nothing against this is great. They studied psychology and I studied a bit, but if you're studying the mental, if you're studying the sort of, Western psychology, you now have more labels to put on people. Yeah. So you're kind of more stuck into your personality. So everything that you see or hear is going through this kind of factory, a factory that is processing everything and is spitting it out into some kind of translation. And how do you fit in with this moment? Is it good or bad? Analyzing everything, interpreting, everything. So it's quite amazing. So that's what life is all about, I guess you could say, society. So just sign came up of a few minutes left. Yeah, so society, that's what it is. And you can live like that, it's fine if you're happy with that. If you find it colorful and you enjoy that, it's okay. But a lot of the people that join usually a mindfulness class is because they kind of feel like there must be another way. Another word we could use is, it has been used a lot even through Buddha, is incarnate, when you incarnate. So incarnate means you take form. So you're taking some kind of form. So every moment you're incarnating into your form, into your basically your conditioning, yeah, into your opinions. So if you're going to every moment incarnate into yourself, thinking the same things all the time and worrying, and so if you're incarnating every second, then that's what we call personality, yeah, or ego. So you're using a lot of energy to do that because you have to maintain it. So it's like pedaling a bicycle. You gotta keep that incarnation going, so it's always you. So Bruno's here all the time. I have to keep on pedaling my bike. I need to keep on thinking my same thoughts. So I can create a form, the form of the ego. And that form can be good or bad depending on my conditioning, on my self-esteem, low self-esteem, high self-esteem. You will like your forms. Everybody loves their forms. You love to be a victim. If you're a victim, generally speaking, we would say it's because you like to be a victim. If you're complaining all the time, it's because you like to do it. If you're suffering, it's because you like to suffer. So you're incarnating into your suffering all the time. At least you have something. So you have form. So it feels good. So you want to incarnate into a form. So this philosophy that I teach is not a philosophy really. It's just you to become aware that you're formless. And you can get in touch with that part of you that is formless. So you don't have to incarnate into another thought. Then you reach this point where you don't want to do that anymore. So now you're not, the mind is not using you. The whole ego will drop by surprise suddenly, and you realize who you are in this sense. And you are not playing the game anymore. So now consciousness is not filled with anything. It's empty because it's formless. So it's your, primordial, original intelligence. It's a very simple part of you. It's back. It doesn't mean you stop thinking. So there's a misunderstanding. Because right now I'm using my conditioning mind to form sentences so I can talk to you. But I can use it when I want to. So I can use the language to create the formless dimension like I'm doing now, talking to you, so you can maybe see it. So we don't have much time, so we'll probably stop there. I'll leave it open to if you have any questions. Just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Bruno, a question about the initiation that you talk about. For example, I think you mentioned someone going through a divorce and all the friends coming around and saying, oh, that's terrible. And you're saying that actually that's a beautiful thing. It's an initiation into something for your soul journey or something new. But often something like that can feel like a huge sense of loss, like there's a big hole there. And it's very difficult to see sometimes that situation is something new, and an initiation it's positive because it could be very painful, or if someone dies around you and you find yourself in the situation of feeling loss, it feels like a very difficult thing to then see that as a, you know, what you're saying about something new, something beautiful. Can you maybe elaborate on that a bit, or sort of help in any way with how you would look at those situations?
Thanks. Yeah, of course, at that time, you're not going to see it that way as something beautiful. All you're going to see is that you're going to see the pain and fear. But of course, if you're able to look at the big picture, I mean, now maybe a few years later or days later of that event, you can see that you weren't balanced. You were putting all your energies into something else. If your whole life is your car and someone steals your car, you know, this simple example, like you weren't balanced in the first place. If your kids is everything or your partner is everything, and then they pass away or they leave, then what you going to do? So you weren't really looking at yourself. So it goes down to, unfortunately, education. Education at the beginning, it should have been where we are taught to be responsible for ourselves. Instead, society doesn't teach you that. Society teaches you to depend and to be responsible for others, for your parents or for your kids. So it really changes everything. You're only responsible for yourself, and you have to learn what that means. So that can be another whole topic where we can talk about that. But responsibility, you're only responsible for yourself, for the way you see things, for who you are, and staying connected and staying centered and balanced. So you gave that power away, so you lost that balance. So of course, when something is taken away, or like when Eckhart Tolle says, when the fabric of your existence, you know, falls apart, and you have a lot of gaps, well, you get to see who you really are now, and what's left of you. Taking away, you know, your country, like me, take away the country, your family, wife is gone, son is gone, my health, my back is gone, the job is gone, and what's left? And then you can really see who you are. So nothing really important has been taken away. It's just that I was off balanced through life. So we go through the initiations so we can come back again and realize, maybe get a little bit closer to your center. And you go through another initiation. And then again, you come back to seeing yourself a bit more. All right, thank you so much. I think we ran out. There will be no Tai Chi afterwards. I'm sorry, I have to do something for my sister, so I have to leave. But thank you so much for sitting there. And I will send you some questions through email. Yeah.
Thank you, Bruno.
Bruno.
You turn on your mic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.